Hey, y'all, Choice here. Thank you again for joining me for another session of Choice Spirit. Hey, hey. I'd like to take a moment and talk about the mask or mask, the archetype, the character that you are portraying at any given moment. The character that you are portraying at any given moment. Who you be. From time to time, or most of the time, who are you playing out? Each of us has a role that we're going to grow through, a characteristic that we will grow through, evolve, exist through. Many believe that we are born with these various characteristics that we then will play out in this human experience, if you will. But because many of us may or may not believe it, we don't realize that we're actually playing out. We have actually taken on the role of a character that will play out experiences to grow through, as I said before. What we do from the time that we are born, and prior to being born, and that is within our DNA and, and everything else. I kind of don't want to, I won't go into all of that part in this video. I will just talk about this archetype that we're playing out by the way of our egos. So subconsciously, we'll create scenarios so that we have the opportunity to go through the maze in the pathways of that particular scenario. Or we'll create a life with various type hurdles, if you will, that then our character will then have to leap over, get back up, do it again, almost like a book called, I think it's called The Hero's Journey, where it's about, being down and out, finding your way up to your feet, rising up high, then falling flat on your face, and then doing it again. This archetype that we use to play out these, if you just check the different scenarios that you create subconsciously that take place in your life, you may recognize a pattern, a certain pattern, the way that things unfold. Or, for instance, I talk about this in one of my other videos. You keep attracting the same type of people in your life. The same type of people. Some people come in to sabotage your success. Other people come in that uplift you and it's a part of your success. uh, you get various type people that come into your life at any given time that actually allows you to play the game of life with them and through them, if you will. That's why all relationships are sacred. Because people just don't just show up in your life. Somewhere subconsciously, in your psyche, perhaps through a spiritual agreement, if you will. People show up in your life that has a message, is kind or can be kind of like a pathway, of some sort, one that is they're all instrumental in your growth, but it's your perception and is your ability to grow in knowledge and wisdom through the interaction, which when you are mindful, when you are bringing your awareness to who you are being and the role that you are playing and how you are playing out your role, you will begin to grow through the experiences with a little more ease. You will also learn that you cannot you will also come to know that you cannot solve situations with the same mindset you had subconsciously, by default, or on purpose. With that same mindset, or the person you were being, or the person that you're playing, you cannot solve it being that same person. You cannot solve these self-made obstacles, hindrances, walls, ceilings, obstacles, whatever you want to call them, certain type of relationships that really brings you to a point where you really have to do deep soul searching. You have to grow through them, become new, have a renewing of the mind and heart in order to see it from a different perspective, in order to solve the situation, solve to overcome whatever the scenario is that you've created for yourself. You then have to morph into a new being, a new person. Then the archetype that you were, the character that you were playing in that role also evolves and grows and changes. We see this in relationships. You know, you go into this relationship, or you go into a business, or you go into something, and by the time you finish going over through all the various obstacles, issues, and heartbreaks and everything else, you come out with a new mindset. But very rarely do we stop to think about how we've actually grown into a new person, a new archetype, or maybe an archetype with another level of with something more, because there's always, always, always going to be something more. There's always going to be something more. So you've gone through a relationship that has taken you to a certain level, and then it's basically preparing you for the next thing that's coming your way. And a lot of times we see this when we live in appreciation, when we live in a state of gratitude, when we live with what some says positive mental attitude, or in a state of love and well-being, we often appreciate these different lessons that help us to evolve to the next level, and we can see how it prepared us for the next thing. It opened the doors for the next thing when we were able to accept and appreciate and that was shown to us, so that we could evolve through to provide us leverage for the next endeavor. So you often hear me talk about how we can't see ourselves. You know, there's a few of us that can really see ourselves, but most of us cannot. And we basically realize who we are being when we are in an environment with others. You know, some people do this in comparing themselves to others, which I would not suggest. Comparing yourself to anyone, ever. Because we are all unique. We are all unique. And there is no comparison when we know this. There's no comparing anything when we know this about ourselves. Okay? So, knowing your archetype, by observing what goes on to your life, you can just about see who you are being as you're playing out these different life lessons, and you know, kind of like going through these principles in life. You can see a pattern that begins to show you something about yourself that you can then make a decision to keep or change. Keep or change. And as you do that, your archetype, the person that you are being, will evolve, will change. Now we all see this thing where we can say, you know what, you were behaving like a real ass, or you were being you're beautiful, you're just an angel, you know, you're just so beautiful in the way that you are being. Whatever that might be, we may see this and accept this as our truth, but it's what someone else is calling you, that they perceive you to be. And then if you accept it as your truth, then you can say, this is what I am, and this is what I choose to be. And then you can begin to work on whatever you feel within that is getting in the way of you being the person you choose to be. To assume the role that you choose for yourself, deliberately and intentionally. And you will begin to mold your being. Anyway, more on this in another video. Thank you so very much for joining me again for another session of Choice Spirit. Namaste.